Yes, hello, beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, and also designed to help you deepen in your connection with your angels and the divine love that is here for you. If we're meeting for the first time, I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. And I do this through one-on-one angel sessions, which are wonderful. So if you're enjoying the vibration and the energy of this podcast, you can book a personal one-on-one session with me and the angels. And you can find out more about that at my website, illuminatingsouls.com. I also offer one-on-one soul mentoring, which provides for consistent support as you move through a time of healing, growth, or transition in life. And I also offer a variety of classes, so lots of ways for us to connect when you're awake. But for now, the angels and I are here to help you come into a beautiful sanctuary for rest. So the intention of this podcast is to provide you with the beautiful energy of the angels, which I find to be highly compatible with sleep, and to be a loving, calm, soothing voice that you can listen to as you drift off. I've been using sleep podcasts for years, and I find that they provide a bridge between my mind's waking chatter and drifting off into the great mystery of sleep. There is a lot happening in the world right now, and I'm not going to talk about it, so this is a sleep podcast. I just mention it because I have been aware that for myself, I have been moving through some enormous emotional and energetic wobbles that feel like they're coming from the collective versus them being generated through my own personal curriculum. And last night I had one of those nights where you can hear my breath, right? A deep breath. Last night I was having one of those nights where I was finding it really hard to disengage. I listened to several sleep podcasts, or at least little snippets of them. I didn't make it all the way through. I finally wound up putting on some music, but I was craving something to specifically help soothe my nervous system and my mind. And so this episode is dedicated to those frequencies that I'm going to ask the angels to come in and help create the kind of soothing, comforting, loving presence that I was really craving last night. So this will be an oasis for you and for me too. We're all in it together. So I'm going to begin by calling in the angels. So you take some nice deep breaths in and out and get comfortable in your body. Cozy on up. Snuggle on in. And I'll bring the angels forward for you. Beautiful angels on high, I ask that you join us here. Please cultivate a beautiful sanctuary of light that supports each of the beloveds here in coming into a deep state of rest and well-being. Angels, please create a buffer of light around us so that it is easy to feel the calm, nurturing presence of the angels that are with us now. Angels, we ask that you lift anything that does not belong to us, helping to bring forth calming, soothing light that allows each one of us to go more deeply into a meaningful state of rest. So just take some deep breaths in and out. And the angels are here. They are with you now. And they are filling the room you are in with a beautiful, soft light, filled with divine love that is calibrated just for you. Allow this light to cascade down your body, bringing comfort and love to the top of your head, all the way down your body to the tips of your toes, inviting your breath to go deeper and deeper still. The angels invite you into this space of healing and light. They are clearing your energy field through the heart of divine love. The angels are aware of all that is transpiring in your life and in the world. And they are here with you now. And just breathe. You, beloved, you are precious in this world. And we are so deeply grateful for you. You are one who feels life deeply in your heart. And so this love that we bring to you is an elixir of sorts. There is something about divine love that can bring healing across the timeline of our lives. That in this moment we don't even need to know or name what is up for healing, but we can trust that the heart of God knows. And allow your body to begin to feel both heavy and weightless at the same time. Yes. That beautiful sense of sinking in and floating that comes with sleep. And keep breathing. As I was getting ready for this episode and feeling the energy flowing in, the angels showed me images of old growth trees. Trees are such magnificent ambassadors for this planet. They draw life from the earth and from the sun, and then they give back generously. They stand sentry to all that transpires, and they provide nourishment and shelter, and their vibration, if you will, I find very calming. I'm fortunate to live in the Bay Area, and we are blessed to have the gift that is Muir Woods, where there are giant old redwoods that are majestic. And there's something so healing about being in a forest like that, to be in the calm, to listen to the ambient noise that happens when the wind blows through the canopy of leaves, the way the light dapples through the branches, and how the energy feels so clear and pure. And so these are the frequencies we bring to you now. And if it helps, you can visualize yourself perhaps even walking through a forest of giant sequoias or redwoods, or sitting underneath a weeping willow. The trees in some ways create the cathedral of God, and they are so very generous in the way they share their life force with the planet. So whatever your idyllic forest would be, feel the vibration and the purity of light that is coming to you now. The wisdom of trees, they go dormant for a time, and then they come back to life. They stand year after year, and they bring beauty and sustenance with their presence. So just breathe in and allow the love of Mama Earth and the trees and the heartbeat of this realm to move through you. Allow yourself to come present to the calm, to the comfort, and to the soothing vibrations the angels are bringing to you now. There is nothing you need to do. You can let go of anything that came before this moment and simply allow yourself to receive there is a harmonic frequency that is transmitting for you right now. That as you sleep and as you rest, the angels will be tending to your energy field to help bring you into a deeper state of balance, a deeper experience of well-being, to help you feel more centered, and to help you deepen in your connection with the goodness of this world. There is such goodness here for you. So breathe in and allow yourself to receive the blessings that are coming forth for you now. You have permission to receive. Just breathe. And the angels now are bringing to you the vibration of goodness. If you'll think of it as a frequency, as they bring it to you now, it is helping to lighten your energy field. You don't need to do anything but receive. And just allow the goodness to come to you, the brightness of spirit to find you. Giving yourself the spaciousness and time to just relax into this moment. And whenever your consciousness is ready to drift off, it'll be okay. We are here with you. The angels continue bringing to you love, a love bath, if you will. And while you rest, I'm going to tell you a story. So for tonight's bedtime story, I'm guided to share with you something that is lighthearted and sweet. And you may remember recently I did an episode about food memories, and I shared with you some recipes out of a cookbook put out by a Jewish sisterhood. And I may have shared with you that I started collecting these kinds of cookbooks. I should mention that I don't like to cook, so I am not collecting these cookbooks so that I can make the recipes. I just love reading through them because they bring back so many warm memories for me. And I find them fascinating because they reflect the culture of that time and the way people cooked. I'm a foodie at heart, and I eat really well now. I've made some really significant changes in the way I consume food in the last 3 years. So I no longer eat sugar. I don't eat much in the way of processed food. But I love reading about food. I love looking at food. I think much in the same way that I love watching videos of animal sanctuaries and people and their dogs, even though I have no desire to rescue goats or pigs myself, or even to have a dog right now. I love dogs, but now is not the time in my life to have one. So I think there are different experiences in life where we get pleasure out of simply witnessing it, if you will. And that's how I am with food these days, especially the food that brings me back to my childhood and my family memories that bring me such a deep sense of joy. So tonight's episode is inspired by the Jewish dish known as Kugel. It's spelled Kugel, Kugel. Now, if you were never raised around Jewish people, you may not have any idea what it is. It is a casserole of sorts, usually made with noodles, and it's often a sweet dish, so a sweet noodle casserole. It can also be savory. And Kugel, my entire life, has always been one of my comfort foods. It was, for me, it would hit up around the top 5 comfort, magical, celebratory foods, right? So birthday cake, ice cream, cookies, and Kugel's up there somewhere. Because whenever Kugel was involved, it was a good day. Does that sound weird? You didn't just have Kugel on a Tuesday, right? Like, it just wasn't like, hey, you might have just mashed potatoes or you might have Kugel. Kugel was not used for ordinary meals. We were Reformed Jews. That means we were of the more liberal Jewish population. In our family, though, we always would have Shabbat dinner. So in Judaism, the Sabbath runs from Friday night to Saturday night. For us, we celebrated in our home with a Friday night Shabbat dinner. My mom would usually make a special meal, and sometimes it would involve Kugel. We loved Kugel in our house. And we would light the candles, and my father would say the bracha over the wine, and then we would have a special meal. So I grew up with Shabbat dinners being special in our house. And I think this is probably why I associate Kugel with a special meal, because we often had it for Shabbat or for Rosh Hashanah or for Passover. My mom would make a matzah Kugel. So when I moved out on my own and I moved to Los Angeles, I wanted to make a Kugel, and I asked my mom for a recipe. Now there's lots of different recipes. The recipe she gave me was one that involves a lot of dairy. My mom's Kugel did not involve dairy when she made it, and I'm trying to remember if I specifically asked her for a recipe that had more of the creamy dairy stuff in it. Because this recipe I'm going to share with you is a recipe that I became famous for. And famous, I don't mean really famous. I mean my, dozen friends who I had at the time loved my Kugel. And so whenever we would have a big meal, I was known for my cranberry chicken, which I shared with you in the last food episode. And to my vegans, I am sorry that I will be sharing some I'll do my best not to share too many meat recipes. But for those who are wanting the best ever Jewish chicken recipe that is inspired by cooking in the 60s and 70s, it's 1 can of whole cranberry sauce, half a bottle of Catalina dressing, and a packet of Lipton onion soup mix poured over your chicken. It's brilliant. And then I would make a kugel. So here's my kugel recipe for you. You take a big bag of egg noodles. So not just regular pasta. It has to be the egg noodles. And you cook them according to the directions on the package. And it's helpful if you make them a little bit al dente. Then you take 4 eggs, 1 cup of sugar, which is why I don't make this anymore. 1 cup of sugar, 2 cups of cottage cheese, 2 cups of sour cream, so you can see where this is going, right? And 1.5 sticks of butter melted, 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 2 cups of golden raisins. So you mix that all together and you put it into a big, like a 13 by 9 pan. And then you bake it at 350 degrees for 45 minutes. And it tastes like heaven. It's brilliant. When I was younger and lived in Los Angeles, we would cook for each other, right? We didn't have spouses and children to go home to, so we would have dinner parties or we would cook comfort food for each other. And I was known for my kugel. Because kugel, if you grew up with kugel, it's one of those dishes that you love. And when someone makes a good kugel, it's like home, I would imagine. It's similar to growing up in an Italian family. If you have a friend who can make, my friends from New Jersey used to call it gravy, but if you have friends who can make gravy or sauce the way your grandmother used to, that's gold, right? It has all the warmth and memories of goodness and home and childhood. So this was mine. And it's interesting because as I've gotten older, I don't make it anymore because my husband doesn't care for it. I made it for him once and he's like, yeah, it's okay. I'm like, what do you mean it's okay? It's kugel. And he did not grow up with it, so he had no fondness for the dish. And he would eat it because I made it, but he had no kugel joy. And there's just no point in making it if there's no joy, right? And I probably could eat an entire pan by myself, but that's a really bad idea. So I think I may have made it once for his children and they didn't like it either. So I sort of put the kibosh on my kugel days, but I do appreciate it when other people make it and I can have a bite or two here or there. So I thought I would share that with you and invite you to think about what dishes from your upbringing bring that forward for you. You know, there are certain meals, certain flavors or scents that just bring back that sense of home. And this is one of mine. You know, over the years, I played around with the recipe. When I was off sugar years ago, I'm off sugar again, but at the time I was off it for 12 years before that. And then I got back on it for a while. But so back then, I found a recipe that was sweetened with, I think, apple juice and maple syrup or something. And it was okay, but it wasn't good. And My mom's version didn't have the dairy, so she usually used margarine, and there was none of the dairy, so it was a really different texture, but it was still really good. So I thought we would dive into some of the community cookbooks, and I will share with you a variety of Kugel recipes while you drift off to sleep. I will do my best to make this as boring as possible, yet still a bit entertaining. So if you're not asleep yet, at least I'll keep you amused. So here is my ode to Kugel. We're going to start with a community cookbook called A Taste of Tradition, a kosher cookbook from Cherith Israel Sisterhood in Dallas, Texas. Now, I should mention, what does it mean when it's a kosher cookbook? I'm sure you've heard that word before, and if you, again, haven't grown up around Jews, you may not know what that means. Some Jewish people keep kosher, and there's a whole set of rules associated with it, but the main one to consider is that they do not mix milk and dairy, and they also do not eat any pork products. So in a kosher cookbook, you would not have a recipe that would call for meat and dairy in the same dish. And this cookbook was published in 1980. And I will say that I specifically purchased this cookbook because the seller on eBay, when they were taking pictures of random pages, they took pictures of the Kugel page. So that to me felt like kismet, like this was meant to be mine. And this is interesting because they really have a variety of different kinds of dishes here. So let's go. The first one is an apple noodle Kugel, and this is submitted by Doris Freed. Now, for those of you who heard the other episode I did, that other cookbook had a lot of people, a lot of the women associated as Mrs. and then the husband's name, last name. In this one, there is no Mrs. So-and-so, it is the woman's name. So this is from Doris Freed. So we're going to set the oven temperature to 350, so 350 degrees. You take 1 pound of wide egg noodles, 3 eggs, a 1/4 cup of sugar. So right away, that sounds more friendly than mine did, because mine takes a cup of sugar. Of course, I love that, right? So this is just a 1/4 cup of sugar, so a little better. 8 ounces of cream cheese, 8 ounces of cottage cheese. So again, that's half the amount of sour cream and cottage cheese that's in my recipe. 1 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 cup of raisins. And I'm sorry, in my opinion, raisins make the Kugel. I always added extra raisins to mine. But this is a 1/2 cup of raisins. But I think here's where the gold comes in. 6 cups of apples peeled and sliced thin. And she doesn't say what kind of apples, but I'm assuming that the people who use these cookbooks would probably know that tart apples typically do better in these kinds of dishes. So I would assume it would be whatever kinds of apples you might use for a pie or a crumble. A 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon and 3 tablespoons of butter. Okay, so just comparing, my recipe has 1.5 cups of butter. Like, what's bad about mine, right? A cup of sugar, 1.5 cups of butter. So this just has 3 tablespoons of butter. So I think this actually might be much healthier and still be relatively tasty. Okay, so here are the instructions for any of you that want to make this at home. Preheat oven and grease casserole. Cook noodles according to package directions and drain. Place eggs in bowl and beat lightly. Add sugar and beat again. Blend in sour cream, cottage cheese, salt, raisins, apples, and cinnamon. Add to cooked noodles. Pour into casserole. Dot with butter or margarine. Bake until lightly browned. Top with additional sour cream if desired. And you cook this for an hour. It's and you put this into a 9 by 13 pan. And she says it yields 12 servings. Or 6 in my house. Right? So that is Apple Noodle Kugel by Doris Freed. So thank you, Doris. I appreciate that. This next recipe is from Peggy Marcus, and it is fruit kugel. So again, we're setting the oven to 350 degrees. This is 8 ounces of egg noodles, a 1/4 pound of butter or margarine, 1/2 cup of sugar, 3 ounces of cream cheese. So some kugels call for cream cheese. 3 eggs, 1 cup of milk, 1 cup of apricot nectar, and 8 ounces of crushed pineapple drained. So cook noodles according to package directions and drain. Stir butter or margarine into hot drained noodles. Preheat oven and grease pan. Pour noodles into pan. Cream sugar and cream cheese. Beat eggs and add to cream cheese mixture. Add milk and apricot nectar. Fold in pineapple. Pour over noodles, stirring lightly. Mixture will be loose. Sprinkle topping over noodles and bake, and then cool on rack for 30 minutes, and this freezes well. Now, we have not yet talked about toppings for kugel, but some people top theirs with crushed cornflakes, as does Peggy Marcus. So her topping is a 1/4 cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 4 tablespoons of butter or margarine, and it says 2/3 tablespoon of crushed cornflakes, but that doesn't sound like that's enough. I wonder if it was supposed to be 2/3 of a cup. So it says combine sugar, cinnamon, butter, or margarine, work in crushed cornflakes and sprinkle over noodles. And this one we're cooking for 45 minutes to an hour. That one sounds really interesting. Okay. Next episode, next recipe. This is from Pearl Harris. Again, ovens at 350. So you can make all of these kugels at the same time because they all just need 350 degrees. Again, we're looking at 8 ounces of wide egg noodles. Now, it's interesting that just so you all know, if you're going kugel ingredient shopping, there are different kinds of egg noodles. There's the wide ones, the medium ones, and the thin ones. They all taste the same, but they just give a different texture. I personally liked my kugel with the medium ones. So not the super thin ones and not the super wide ones. I went for the medium ones, but you do you. So 8 ounces of wide egg noodles cooked, 4 eggs beaten, 6 tablespoons of margarine or butter melted, 12 ounces of dry cottage cheese, and then they have in parentheses ricotta cheese, 6 ounces of applesauce, 1/2 cup of raisins, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then 1/2 cup of sugar, which is optional, and 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. Mix all ingredients together and pour into a well-greased pan. It can be frozen. If creamed cottage cheese is used, drain well, and then you bake either 45 minutes to 60 minutes until it's set. So you can see that they're the same basic ingredients, but probably just like spaghetti sauce or meatloaf or chocolate cake. each family would have their own way of doing it. And then the way your grandmother or mother made the dish was the way you would crave it, right? You would go to each person's house, and if you were there for a Jewish holiday and Kugel was present, it would be made a little bit differently than your family made it. But wait, there's more. It's interesting how they're all very similar, but this one is from Ardell Freeman. Again, 350 degrees is the oven. She is using 8 ounces of the medium-wide egg noodles, 6 eggs, 3/4 cup of sugar, half a pint of sour cream, 1/4 pound of margarine melted, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, a 29-ounce can of sliced peaches, drained, but reserve 10 slices for topping, 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 2 tablespoons of sugar. That's interesting. So again, you kind of cream everything together and make the noodles. I'm not going to read all that again because you guys are getting the hang of it now. But you decorate it with the reserved peaches and combine 2 tablespoons of sugar and cinnamon and sprinkle that over the kugel. So it's interesting as I look through these recipes, how there are slight differences between them. It cracks me up that my version had the most sugar and butter. Like, of course it did. Like, give me the most of everything. Give me the most butter, give me the most sugar, and then I put in extra raisins. No wonder my kugel was so good. Back then, I don't know about the 80s, but, in the 60s and 70s, margarine became a thing. So my mom cooked mostly with margarine and not butter. So when I discovered the power of butter, when I lived on my own, it was a revelation. I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. I'm going to move over to another cookbook. This is Hand in Hand, Heart to Heart, Sisterhood Temple Bethel in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And this was published in 1994. Now here we're going to delve into potato kugel. Now I have to tell you, I cannot speak with any authority on potato kugel because that was not a dish in our family, nor have I ever made it. But now we're getting into more of a savory kugel. And listen, if you know me at all, you know I would have always chosen sweet over savory, so I never made any attempt to master the savory kugel. I would have been like, what's the point? But now that I don't eat sugar anymore, these actually sound kind of good. So here we go. Potato kugel. And this is by Evelyn Brown. 3 large to medium Idaho russet potatoes, half a medium onion, 1 large egg, 3 tablespoons of flour, 1 teaspoon baking powder, 1 teaspoon salt, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, and 3/4 cup of corn oil. So kugel, again, is just another form of a casserole. So this is a savory potato casserole known as a kugel. So here we're preheating the oven to 350. Take baking pan about 10 by 10 inches and add half a cup of oil and preheat. Peel and thin grate potatoes and onions. Lightly beat the egg. Add to potato mixture. Mix in well. Add flour and baking powder. Stir in lightly but well blended. Add salt, pepper, and 1/4 cup of oil. Stir and mix everything until it is all mixed in. Pour mixture into preheated pan and bake about 45 minutes at 375 degrees. Okay, you know what? We're going to go back to the sweet kugels because I have to read you this. I have to read you the name of this recipe. It's called My Mom's Incredibly Fattening Noodle Pudding. A friend gave this one. The ingredients are a pound of noodles, 4 ounces of butter, 1 cup sugar, 4 eggs, half a pound of cottage cheese, 1 pint of sour cream, 2 apples peeled, cored, and cut up, 1 small can of peaches drained, 1 teaspoon vanilla, half a jar of orange marmalade, half a cup of raisins, 1 pint of milk, half a cup of cornflakes, and 2 tablespoons of cinnamon sugar. So preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Parboil noodles for 5 minutes and drain. Melt butter over noodles, making sure all noodles are drenched in butter. Mix sugar and eggs with an electric blender. Add cheese, sour cream, and milk. Fold in apples, peaches, vanilla, marmalade, and raisins. How good does that sound? Add mixture to noodles and pour everything into a large glass baking dish. Fill dish 3/4 to the rim. Allow space for pudding to rise. Lightly sprinkle crushed cornflakes over the top of pudding. Dot with butter and cinnamon sugar. So you're baking it at 350 degrees for 1 hour. And I thought I would also share with you a recipe for matzah kugel. So, when Passover comes around, you can't eat regular noodles anymore if you're Jewish. So here we go with matzah kugel. 6 large matzahs broken up. 5 extra large eggs. 1 cup of milk. 1 pound of cottage cheese. 1 teaspoon of salt. 1/4 cup of sugar. 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, a little bit of nutmeg, a half a stick of melted butter. Combine eggs and milk well. Add all other ingredients except matzah. Grease a 1.5 quart dish. Place 3 broken matzahs in the dish. Cover with half the cheese mixture and repeat. Bake at 350 degrees for 35 minutes until done. And then here's a recipe for a matzah kugel with apples and nuts. So 3 matzahs. You can either use the egg matzahs or the regular. 3 eggs separated. So it's going to be a little fancy. 3 eggs separated. 1/4 cup of raisins, which is optional. I don't know why you wouldn't use raisins. They're awesome in a kugel. 3 tart apples, sliced thin and peeled. Half a cup of chopped walnuts or slivered almonds. A half a cup of sugar or honey. 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. 2 teaspoons of grated lemon rind. And 1/4 cup of butter or margarine melted. So soak the matzahs and drain. Beat egg yolks, sugar, and cinnamon. Stir in juices, rind, matzahs, apples, walnuts, and melted butter. Beat egg whites until stiff and fold into mixture. Sprinkle with cinnamon sugar and bake in greased pan for 45 minutes at 350 degrees. And then here's a Passover vegetable kugel. So this brings us back to the savory options. 1 1/3 sticks of margarine. Half a cup of chopped green pepper. 2 cups of onion. 1 cup of chopped celery, 3 cups of grated carrots, 2 10-ounce packages of frozen spinach, 6 eggs, 3 teaspoons of salt, which is optional, that's a lot of salt, half a teaspoon of pepper, and 1.5 cups of matzo meal, which is like matzo flour. Grease a 9 by 12 inch pan. Sauté green pepper, onion, celery, and carrots in margarine. Cook and drain spinach. Mix eggs, salt, pepper, spinach, and matzo meal together. Add sautéed vegetables and bake in a greased 9 by 12 inch pan. Bake for 45 minutes at 350 degrees. And this is from Sharon Richmond. You know, that kind of sounds good. But I wouldn't make it because no one in my house would eat it but me. And then I will leave you with one more Kugel recipe. This is from Maxine Miller. So 4 eggs beaten, half a pound of noodles cooked, 2 pounds of cottage cheese, 1 cup of sour cream, 1 stick of margarine at room temperature, 1 cup of rice cooked. So this is the first time we've seen rice in a Kugel. 2 teaspoons of vanilla, 1 12-ounce jar of pineapple preserves, graham cracker crumbs, and 1 handful of white raisins. Cook rice. Cook and drain noodles. To drained noodles, add rice, well-beaten eggs, cottage cheese, sour cream, pineapple preserves, vanilla, and raisins. Spray a 9.5 by 14 inch baking dish with Pam and slice the stick of margarine in small slices. Place on the bottom of the pan. Pour in the combined ingredients and sprinkle graham cracker crumbs on the top. Bake in a preheated 350 degree oven for 40 to 50 minutes. And you know what I love so much about each of these recipes is it's a reminder that there is not a perfect recipe, that these are not recipes that have been perfected by a test kitchen. This was the way many of our, parents and grandparents cooked. A little bit of this and a little bit of that. My grandmother used to put this in it. My grandmother did it this way. In our house, there was the recipe my mother made, and that was our version. And then when I moved out on my own, I found my favorite recipe that I would always make for people. I'm hoping in your life there are some recipes that bring this sense of warmth and joy to you, the way these recipes do for me. It's a testament to the many unique ways that we all grow up and live our lives. I love reading through these recipes and these cookbooks because they're a window into the kitchens, which were quite often the heart of the home. And when I think of the women of these generations and how they often learned to cook from their mothers, learned to cook from their mothers. And there is a sense of warmth and ancestry in these recipes. And it just warms my heart. And so I bring to you these warm sweet, lighthearted memories to perhaps help you connect with your memories too. So I wish you a good rest. The angels will stay with you. You are precious in this world, and you are loved. And I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to spend this time with you. Thank you.